This box contains something a little bit special. Well, I think it does anyway, and by that I mean I think the item is special, not that I hope what I think is in the box is in the box. I know it is, I've checked. But anyway, we're going to open up at the end of the video for anyone that's nosy. But in the meantime, I'd like to discuss West Ham's transfer strategy and the club's strategy going into the summer transfer window and into next season, because it's a big window, it's huge, it's pivotal. And everyone at the club that's involved have to get their roles done well. Whether it's Macaulay, Potter, Sullivan, or anyone else, they've got to get it bang on. Because right now, while we look ahead to next season, before the window opens and any business gets conducted, I think everything is on the table. If we have the perfect summer transfer window, we do well next season, I think we could finish 8th, and fingers crossed that would be enough for European football. So that's the ideal scenario. But on the other side of the coin, if we take a look at the worst case scenario, which is we have a bad transfer window and next season goes horribly wrong, I think we could finish 18th. I think right now, looking ahead to next May, I guess, August to May, I think 8th to 18th is there for West Ham. And how we do will largely depend on how we do in the summer transfer window. We've got to get it right. We've got to be busy and we've got to get it right. And Graham Potter's been speaking quite a bit about the window over the last couple of weeks, which is, I think, quite unusual. I think a lot of managers play it down. And to be fair, he did. A month ago, 2 months ago, he was playing the transfer window down as much as he could. We need a few tweaks, that's it. And he was batting away the questions, understandably, because there was still a lot of games to be played. And the players at the club were the players that he was trying to motivate to see the season out. But in the last couple of weeks, he's changed his tone, he's changed his answer. And he's now quite open about how he's speaking about the window. And I'm liking a lot of the things he's saying. Now, it is confirmation bias because I'm hoping that we're going to have a busy window. I'm hoping we're going to be bold. I'm hoping we're going to be brave. And that means selling players. And that means bringing in a few players, but substantial players. I'm hoping that we rebuild the midfield this summer. So I'm desperate when Potter speaks about the window. I'm desperately looking for encouragement that I might get what I desire as a West Ham fan this summer. And a lot of the things he's saying is giving me that hope. Now, it may not be true. I may be picking it up wrong. But I am desperate for any form of hope right now. So in the window's the next big thing, isn't it? We don't worry about next season until August when the games get underway. But he's spoken about having a smaller squad. I'm okay with that. It makes sense. The squad we have this season, it is too big realistically for not having European football. And you look at some of the players we've got out on loan with Zuman, Cornet and Agerd. Those three players are on big wages. One of them's worth a decent bit of money. We're loaning these players out because the squad's that big. So I've got no problem with him wanting to make it a smaller squad. I quite like it, actually. I don't think it's a bad idea in the slightest. He's spoken about bringing in younger players and the resale value. Let's deal with the younger players aspect of it first. Again, it makes sense. We have the second oldest squad in the Premier League. Now, I don't get hugely hung up on that as such, because I think there's good players that are old. And whenever sometimes you do these videos and you discuss a player that's over 30, someone say, oh, he's over 30. I think, yeah, but it doesn't mean he's a bad player. That's just his age. And I think having a handful of them, older players, is not a bad thing. The problem is when you've got a lot of them, that's the issue. Or you don't have any of the younger players to balance out. That's the issue. So I don't mind. Even if we were to bring in a 30-year-old this summer, it wouldn't bother me as long as it's the right player and it's the right fit for the club. The issue would be if we only brought in players that were 30 or over. That's my issue. So hearing him say he wants to reduce the age of the squad and bring in younger players, it makes sense. It's encouraging. I like it. Then when he speaks about the resale value, now we've discussed the character side of it in yesterday's video about how that may mean that we perhaps don't see many Coufals and Creswells and Fabianskis in the future at West Ham. We're going to prioritise profile and selling over longevity at West Ham. And I'm okay with that. I'd like a mix. Ideally, I'd like a mix. Don't always get what you want, and it's hard to do that, I think. But I'm liking what he's talking about how we're going to approach the transfer window in terms of selling players and the profile players we're looking to bring in. It's all good. But I do have a bit of a concern. Well, I've got more than one, but in terms of the transfer strategy, there's an issue with the negotiating side of it, and if that's down to David Sullivan and getting our main targets, I have concerns with that. I feel quite relaxed actually about identifying the correct players. I actually feel quite optimistic that Macaulay would be able to do that with Graham Potter. And some of the players we've been linked to, now I'll be honest with you, one of them in particular, I'd never heard of him, right? I'd never heard of him. I'm still not even sure how you pronounce his name, Yashiri. He's just won Player of the Season in Belgium. Now, I'd never heard of him, covered him a week ago, and a couple of people commented saying, oh, he's the best player in the league, blah, blah, blah. That was good. That gave me a bit of encouragement. But then today I see that Manchester City are after him. So I'm thinking, well, that's positive, right? We've identified this player, and Manchester City have also identified it. And I would suggest that Macaulay knows what he's doing. The issue is once the player's name gets passed up the chain and getting into the club. So I do have a few concerns. But trying to put like the negotiating side of it to one side and focus on the transfer strategy for the video. My concern really is the end result of the rebuild, I guess. Now, before I get into it, this video is sponsored by Surfshark. So if you're looking for a VPN to help keep your electronic devices safer, so your phone, your device, your computer, may I point you in the direction of Surfshark. Gonzo's been using it for over 3 years now, and it was he recommended Surfshark to I when I had acquired one. So I've had it for a little over a year. Gonzo's had it for over 3 years. Now, my favourite feature isn't necessarily the fact that it makes my devices safer, it's the fact that I can change the location on my phone. So let's just say I have Netflix on my phone. I want to watch something that's out in America, but it's not out in the UK. I can go into Surfshark and can change the location on my phone to America. My phone now thinks I'm over in the United States. I am not, however, I'm still back here in the rainy but humid United Kingdom. My phone doesn't think I'm here, so I can now access American Netflix. I can watch the shows people in America watch. It's my favourite thing about it. Anyway, there's a few other benefits to getting Surfshark. So you only need one account to cover unlimited devices. So you sign up once, you pay once, but you get as many devices as you want on your account. And if up to 30 days you think, I wish I never got Surfshark, I don't think I need that, you can get a full refund. No questions asked. Get your money back. As simple as that. Now, we've got an offer for you here on Hammers Chat. If you go to surfshark.com/surfshark, you will get 4 months for free. Links in description and the pinned comment, so it's very easy. You don't need any codes, just put that URL bar in, put that website into your URL. Why am I struggling to say this? Type in the URL bar surfshark.com/Hammers Chat. The offer will automatically be applied to your basket. Get your devices safer, get changing your location, and enjoy content. Right then, strategy, which concerns me. Hopefully, there won't be any tongue twisters in this for me. Now, I want to go to a very extreme example before I bring it back to West Ham. And I'm going to go to Old Trafford here. Because Man United possibly have the biggest rebuild job on their hands this summer out of all the Premier League clubs. And Amorim went in there, and I guess if we go back to last summer, Dan Ashworth was at Manchester United, and they discussed replacing Ten Hag, and Ashworth wanted either, don't laugh, Ashworth wanted either Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter at Man United. But a big part of the reason he did not want Ruben Amorim was he felt the squad at Man United that they'd assembled under Ten Hag, Amorim would not be able to work with them, that the squad did not fit how Amorim was as a head coach. Now, I would argue he was correct, because Man United were just outside the Champions League places when Amorim went there, and then they finished up in 15th or 16th. I don't know if they overtook Wolves. I've not looked. Let's just say 15. So they finished 15th in the league. I would argue Ashworth was correct to some extent. He was correct in the sense that Amorim couldn't work with those players. I think it's fair, having watched them this season, we can agree that, right? Whether he's correct to want Potter or Southgate, different argument. That's not the argument I'm trying to make here. So this summer, and now Ratcliffe has acknowledged that. He did that podcast with Gary Neville, and he spoke about how the current group of players at Man United are not his players, and are going to get him his players this summer. Now, here's the thing. Amorim will only play 3-4-3. We've seen it at Sporting, we've seen it at Man United. He's just putting square pegs in round holes until the summer when they can address it and bring in those round pegs. But what happens if it doesn't work? They're going to go all in on Ruben Amorim this summer. They're going to assemble this squad. They're going to try and do the changes they need to do in order to make it so that he's got players that can play 3-4-3 specifically. But what happens if come October, November, December, it's not working and they've got to sack Ruben Amorim? Are they then going to go get who they think is the best manager available, but then next summer they're going to have to rebuild the squad again because maybe that manager plays 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 or whatever? Or would they then try and get a manager in that can work with the profile of players available? A bit like what Wolves did, they sacked Gary O'Neill. They were playing 3-4-3 and then they went and got Vitor Pereira in. And as soon as Pereira arrived, he said, I'm not changing anything. He said, the players here suit this 3-4-3. I'm just going to tweak things a little bit, but we're going to continue with this. And it's worked. So what would Man United do? Would Man United go after a manager that can work with that formation? Oliver Glasner can't get Alonso, he's away to Real Madrid. Antonio Conte might be leaving Napoli. Can you go get him? Inzaghi, would he leave Inter Milan? Again, it's slightly different. Those three at the back, it's two strikers rather than two number 10s. But would you go get a manager that plays with the three at the back formation in particular? Or would you go get a manager and start another rebuild? And I think this is the thing I was thinking about with West Ham. Well, if we're going to go all in on Graham Potter this summer, and I think we have to really because of the lack of recruitment team at the club, we've got a handful of people by the sounds of it, and the main guy, the head of recruitment, is Kyle McCauley. Potter referred to him as the head of recruitment. But here's the thing, what does Graham Potter play? So this season, we've had 19 games under Graham Potter. 5 of them had a back 4. The other 14, we had a back 3. But even within those categories, there's different variations. We've seen it at Chelsea, where he'd play a back 3 a lot. But it might be 3-4-3 with a box midfield, just like Amorim's playing. It might be the 3-5-2 that we've seen more often at West Ham. But there's been times where it felt like a flat midfield 3, and other times where it felt like Souček was almost the number 10. So even though you play a back 3 or back 4, the midfield changes, the attack changes. Potter has a lot of different tactics and ways of playing, unlike Amorim, who has one. But this got me thinking, maybe overcomplicating things in my own head, but I thought I'd share it with you anyway. But I think that makes it difficult going into this summer because I think we can agree that we need a striker, right? But are we looking for a striker that can play the lone striker role, someone like Liam Delap? Are we looking for that type of profile? Because we might go to a 3-4-3 ourselves and have a one striker. Maybe we'll do that at home, but away we'll go back to the 3-5-2. Or are we looking for a striker that can play in a pairing up front? On the left side, it's expected that Emerson's going to leave now. So are we seeking a left back or a left wing back? I imagine the answer is both, because Potter's shown at Chelsea and at Brighton, and I don't know enough about his time over in Sweden, and at Swansea, he'll flirt between the two. He'll play a back 3, but he's not against going to a back 4 and then back again. And I think sometimes that can make it difficult. Now, we've seen at Brighton under Potter where a lot of the players were able to play more than one role in one position. Some games you'd have Trossard in the number 10. The next game he'd be playing as a wing back. Pascal Gross played about 6 different formations under. I'm exaggerating. You get my point though. And I think that's what we're going to be looking at here. Bringing in players that can maybe do more than one job because Potter's going to need them to do that. And I think that makes it a little bit more difficult when going into the summer transfer window because you aren't looking for a left back or a left wing back. You're looking for someone that's going to be good doing both roles. I think the rebuild, there's a lot to be done in terms of quantity, a lot to be improved on in terms of quality. But then I think there's almost like another thing coming into play here, which is apart from, and that's without like considering the age profile and stuff like that, and the value. And there's another one, which is, well, can you play more than one role in how West Ham are going to play next season? Because I think we'll see this 3-5-2 away from home. I'm not sure we'll see it at home as much. I think we will maybe slightly change how we play. And that's what's got me thinking. And it got me thinking about the situation that Man United find themselves in with Ruben Amorim, with the what if it doesn't work. And you've got to apply that to Graham Potter. Because I think it's fair. I think we can agree he's going nowhere. He's starting next season, right? But I think even those who are, you've essentially got three groups of people. You've got Potter in, Potter out, and people that aren't either in the middle. I'm in the middle, right? I don't want him sacked, but at the same time, if he left tomorrow, I wouldn't be upset, right? I'm in the middle. I'm a Potter wait and see. I think that's how I would describe myself as. I'm a Potter wait and see. Partly because our midfield is crap, and partly because I've enjoyed some parts of games under him, and I think he's been unlucky in some games. But also partly because if I wake up tomorrow and he's gone, I would be terrified about who we go get. I'm convinced myself it would be Sean Dyche. I've convinced myself that's who we'd go for, because I think it was Brady. She's spoken about Dyche in a positive light before. Now, she was the one that appointed Potter. She might think, well, she won't be allowed to appoint the next one, but actually flip it round. She's showing that she's got influence over David Sullivan when it comes to managerial appointments at the club. So, and I'd rather have Potter than Dyche, right? So that's my thinking. So I'm a Potter wait and see. But I think those that are Potter in, the happiest ones with Potter, even they've surely got to say, well, maybe there's a possibility he struggles next season. I think, right? I think there's more evidence to suggest that than there is to suggest we're going to finish 8th. Because I bet you when I said that at the start of the video, some people went, you've lost the plot. We're never doing that. You've lost the plot. But that's how I see it. Like, everything's up for grabs next season. So the club have to not protect themselves in the summer transfer window. If they've decided Potter's in charge, fair enough. But I think what the club have to do is come up with a what-if plan. And that is, what if 10 games in we're in the relegation zone? What if 10 games in we're 16th in the league, we've won 3 games and drew 3 and lost 4, right? They've got to almost cover themselves for this, because they didn't with Lopetegui. They hired Lopetegui and thought, this is the guy, he's going to be fantastic, let's go. And it got to the point where they thought, actually, this has been a disaster. And they replaced Lopetegui reasonably quickly with Potter. The way Potter came in eventually, I still believe they had held talks pre-Christmas, but because we won a few games, they thought, oh, we'll keep him. And then he got beat by Man City, and that was the game that made them sack him. I mean, Man City, that's not the game you decide whether to sack your manager or not. It was decided before that. They just needed the defeat. But I will say this. Whilst it was quick going from Lopetegui to Potter, it happened in the same day. That was only because Potter was out of work. If Graham Potter had a job, would he have came in to replace Lopetegui? You won't change my mind on this, I am 100% no. We only hired Potter because he was free. I think there's a possibility, if Potter was not out of work, we would have continued with Lopetegui for at least another few weeks until someone else became available or we found another free agent. I think we only made that change then because of the availability of the freebie. So going into next season, I hope it won't happen. I know they won't because I know what they're like. But I hope there's a what-if plan. What if Potter doesn't work out? And that plan has to come back to the squad that Potter's going to assemble this summer. It's got to be, well, which manager is going to work with the players Potter is bringing in? Now, I don't know the answer to that, A, because I haven't brought anyone in yet, and B, I don't know enough about managers. Right? I know very few. I can name some in the Bundesliga. I could obviously name the English ones, but if you ask me a manager of certain League 2 clubs in England, I couldn't tell you. Ask me the manager of most of La Liga clubs, French clubs, I couldn't tell you. I know about 4 or 5 of Spain and France. Ask me about Portuguese clubs, None, I don't think. Nope, couldn't tell you who the manager of Porto is right now. If I looked it up, I'm like, oh yeah, I should have known that. But right now, off the top of my head, I could not tell you who they are. And I think the club have to almost come up with a what-if plan. What if Potter doesn't work out and we need to sack him? Because the question needs to be, well, who can come in and work with the players Potter's going to bring in? And he's going to assemble this squad this summer. Because if we get it right, great. We could be in for a good season. But if we get it wrong, the summer transfer window, there's a possibility we're going to have to sack Graham Potter before we get to Christmas. And you ain't got a transfer window then. You'll have the January one on the horizon, but you're not going to be able to rebuild the squad. You're going to have to work with who is here. Potter could not do that. 5 wins, 5 wins in 19 games. He couldn't work with the squad. And when people say, wait till... I get that, right? I get it. Even if I don't subscribe to it and completely believe it, I understand the argument. And I do think if we had a different midfielder or two at the club today, we might have had better results under Graham Potter. But we can't afford that next season. We can't afford to say, yeah, but once the new guy gets his own players in. No, because if we are sacking Graham Potter, we're probably in a relegation battle. The bar was actually reasonably in the middle for sacking Lopetegui because we were comfortable. We were 14th. We were comfortable. I think Potter's going to have to do worse than that to get sacked. I think if we were 14th again, I think they would just keep him. So we have to sack him. That means we're in a relegation battle. And that means the guy that we bring in doesn't get to make it his squad. He has to work with the squad Potter assembles this summer. So that's why it's important that Potter gets this summer right in terms of who he wants out the club. McCauley has to get it right in terms of who we bring in. But the board have to get it right in terms of getting the players McCauley wants, but also making sure there's a what-if plan there as well in case things go tits up. Anyway, that's my thoughts. That's my ramblings. That's what was going around in my head over the last couple of days. But thank you very much for joining me. If you don't want to know what's in the box, now's the time to disappear. But before you do, please do drop a like on it, subscribe to Hammer's Chat, and I will catch up with you tomorrow. But for those of you who are nosy, this is now Hammer's Chats. It's not mine, it's Hammer's Chats. I've got this shirt here. Got this shirt. Obviously, they're playing in the final tomorrow night. Real Betis. Now, it's not just a shirt to wear. It's a shirt that's been worn by Pablo Fornals and signed by Pablo Fornals. But it's not just any shirt that's been worn by Pablo Fornals. It's a shirt that's been worn in the Conference League. But not just any Conference League game. This is the shirt he wore in the last game in the Conference League when they played against Fiorentina in the second leg of the semi-final. This is Fornals' shirt from that match. It's got authentication on the bottom there from Real Betis, and it's also got an NFC on the back as well for authentication. We own this. But not for long. We're going to give it to someone. We don't know what we're doing yet, whether we just do a giveaway on Patreon, we do a giveaway on YouTube, we do a raffle, we don't know. But people said they want Fornals stuff, which is actually difficult to acquire. He's not one for signing stuff for Fornals. He's one of the I don't want to say funny players, fussy. He's one of the fussy players about signing stuff. So we were able to purchase this, so we did. I think it's a bit special. Anyway, catch you in a bit.